Bree Sarte, Sherwood Design Engineers, also founder of Sherwood Institute. Looking at a lot of the issues that we work through take us to considering global resources and thinking about the long periods of interglacial time that we're currently on an accelerated peak of in terms of climate change that's rapidly disrupting the balance of carbon in our atmosphere and affecting water levels, our urban edges, and the way that we live in our cities in terms of air quality, human existence. And the future of that's dependent on how we steward the natural resources, how we think about all the water in the world, which you can see on the right. Potable water is that one little dot there. And that's really our survival as a human species is dependent on our stewardship and understanding about our place in this multi-100,000-year cycle. Compounding these critical issues is climate change and the dwindling resources in areas where urban growth is exploding. And so the infrastructures that we're thinking about are trying to link wetter areas with drier areas and trying to find ways to survive in this state where we've already reached 7 billion people on the planet. And many of the most populous areas are also the most arid. Even in a developed country like the United States, our infrastructure is currently hitting about a grade D. And you can see examples of where our America's infrastructure has failed, and that's not the only example. And part of the challenge that we have in taking a 21st century approach to building our cities is the disproportionate ecological footprint of the developed world, and wondering if this model that we've established is actually viable as a mechanism for future urbanization and development. So a lot of the work that we do is really trying to bring our footprint, our development footprint, back in harmony with natural systems, and to try and get a system in place to support that, from rewriting codes, creating new documents, guidelines, frameworks, to rethink the way that our cities, our buildings, our streets, our water systems are coming together, how we handle redevelopment and development systems. Aspirational models like the Living Building Challenge that Greg mentioned are helpful tools, aspirational opportunities to start to rethink buildings, sites, environments. And the practice I've found that it's a 21st century firm that's trying to solve 21st century problems is really bringing art, ecology, and engineering together to try and solve these critical engineering perspective issues around urban design and urban development. Very much our work happens at this intersection of the built environment and natural systems, and finding ways to create a balance in an interweaving fabric that's rethinking traditional 20th century infrastructure at a variety of different scales. And those scales take you from the developed city center all the way out to the furthest reaches of our hinterland, and understanding that relationship both underneath the city and the city's relationship to historical fabric of a place. Where were historic shorelines? Where were historic creeks? What is the ecology of the city? Bringing that back through reformatted, recalibrated infrastructure is necessary at the city scale, but it's also necessary at the state, at the regional, at the national, and at the global scale. So being able to extrapolate your impact when you're in San Francisco to your state's water resources is fundamental. To look at Yosemite National Park, where all of San Francisco's water comes from, is an important part of thinking about how you design a building or an infrastructure in the city of San Francisco. And knowing that relationship, both in terms of the underlying ecology, which we've degraded in Yosemite Park. This is our giant sequoia grove. We've disrupted hydrologic and ecological cycles in this very watershed where we're dependent upon for our city's sustenance for 2.5 million people. Looking at models of other places outside of Yosemite Park that have restored these precious ecological outputs that can help us survive in the lowlands is fundamental to our practice and the approach of the work that we take. Thinking about nesting infrastructures, when I show you the state scale, but also thinking about city, district, block, and building scales, cities develop over time. And that element of time is fundamental in terms of thinking how systems phase in, whether we're changing the way that we're managing and offsetting carbon on a development project, or the way that we're transforming water, waste, or energy systems over a period of time. Understanding this notion of hybridity, where energy, water, waste systems intersect, can actually help to improve the bottom line in financial analysis when you do a life cycle cost across multiple systems and multiple scales. So a lot of our work is looking at the relationship between land, economy, area, carbon, water, and waste, and understanding how to optimize the life cycle analyses over a period of time is fundamental to find solutions that go beyond the 20th century model that's single system based. Being able to zoom out and think about how we're stewarding California's watershed that drains through the San Francisco Bay. It extends all the way down to Los Angeles. What does that mean when you're thinking about replumbing the built physical infrastructure that crisscrosses through the entire state, one of the most complex water systems in the world, moving water from San Francisco to LA and Nevada to LA, etc. What is the role of this San Francisco-based water infrastructure when we transform a block, a city, or just a district neighborhood for a new development project? Many of our projects are working at rethinking this web of water infrastructure, whether it's at a single building, a living building that's quintuple plumbed to recycle black water for irrigation and toilet flushing, that's striving towards net zero water, net zero energy, net zero waste, or whether we're thinking about something at a larger scale where we're starting to transform the city's entire wastewater and water infrastructure, turning derelict streets into regenerative urban oases. Take a block like this, a corner like this, and turn it into high-performance infrastructure where all the water that ran off is now going into the ground. This project we designed, the Mid-Plaza, we're putting 500,000 gallons of water back into the soil through higher performing infrastructure, and have created an incredible, beautiful, dynamic, and flexible urban environment that has become a critical building block to the way that our city is being reimagined, the way that we're programming our spaces, but also the way that we're enjoying our public space and having multi-dimensional aspects and multifunctional usage, being able to highly program but also highly perform within these new environments that we're creating. This is fundamental building blocks that come from these small pieces and start to aggregate through larger scale campus interventions where we take 5 LEED Platinum buildings, combine them with a living building to transform the overall infrastructure at a slightly larger scale, to think about iconic and symbolic projects like the Packard headquarters that we've worked so hard to make net zero energy building and a net zero water project that serves as an example. It's a stewardship iconic project that has international value because they fund many of the environmental programs that are trying to solve these problems. Fundamental to a lot of our work is this focus on educational and didactic infrastructure. And it goes beyond the borders of the United States, thinking through megacities like Guangzhou, which is Guangzhou and Foshan, in South China. You see Hong Kong and Macau. On this map, gray is all the developed land in the Pearl River Delta. We've been working for a couple years with SOM on a 36 square kilometer piece of the city, reimagining this waterfront, whole series of brownfields that are being converted to the largest steel mill in the world to high density, high performing infrastructure, where we've shown through design guidelines and integrated high performing landscapes and buildings that we can actually remove one entire 600 megawatt coal-fired power plant from the grid because of the incredible transformative urban design that uses massing, and setbacks, and guidelines, and landscapes and open spaces to transform the way that China's developing and absorbing resources. In India, we've thought even further, taking an example project that we worked on with Gensler, SWA, which is a high-density, multi-functional mixed-use development project in South India, Bangalore, IT capital of India. This is almost 3 million square feet of development. Using this project as a touchstone to start to transform the ecological performance and landscape of the land around it. Thinking, how can we use a single project, multi-million square foot project, to reach one planet living thinking, really to get back in harmony with the resources that are appropriate to use, to extract, to be able to survive as a species. And that comes down to the way that we manage energy, waste, water, wastewater on site, the way we think about stormwater, but then also the relationship to the broader city. What is the impact of development on the adjacent waterways and the lakes and the systems around us? This is where my sister nonprofit, the Sherwood Institute, has stepped in to think about the entire city. This is all of Bangalore that's lost 2/3 of its lakes and most of its open space. How can we turn these lakes, these natural assets that surround a project like this into a legacy, in a living resource? I did a lot to try and raise money to build awareness for this project. Fortunately, some celebrities from India and other significant people have come in to help take the small steps that we made to build awareness and to raise funds to steward 3 of the lakes through a significant restoration project. And as good of a salesman as I am and passionate about these issues, India's top model, Nicole Faria, has done a lot better job at raising money than I ever could. Has taken on this cause as her own. And so being able to empower people in places of influence, but also to make sure that the work that we're doing is educational, the word is getting out is really important. This last project, you can go to the moment and see this working with work architecture, imagines a future where cities are interwoven with high-performing landscapes, where the wastewater flows through the site, where this tower in the middle is a waste decomposing, methane-generating powerhouse as part of the central part of the project. And you'll see the waterfall on the next slide. That's part of the building. Is a key component to the evaporative cooling and energy storage system within the building. So being able to think big today and tomorrow is fundamental to our practice and the solutions we need to survive.